Hi DIYers, Sterling with Alarm Grid here, and today we're going to show you the difference between the master code and the installer code when using your Honeywell Lyric all-in-one system. So, while Honeywell, through its Lynx Touch systems and now the revolutionary new Lyric system, are starting to build more DIY-friendly systems, they still have not quite yet embraced a full, true DIY installation. They're still expecting you to be having they're still expecting that your system will be installed by a professional alarm company and that you, the end user, will only be doing certain actions, arming the system, disarming the system, checking event logs, adding codes, certain features that the installer would be kept out of, and the deeper level programming for setting up the monitoring or setting up the sensors or anything deeper level is restricted, that only the installer code can do that. So a lot of people, when they get their brand new Honeywell Lyric system, they start using the 4112 default programmer code because that's the code that lets you learn in zones and do the deeper level stuff, and they don't even realize there's a whole nother section of programming, which is the master code programming, that's really supposed to be designed for the end user. Here at Alarm Grid, we act as your security professional, and basically we're empowering you, the end user, to be both the master user and the installer. So we want to show you that you have access to both these modes, and that explanation, a lot of people are confused why they would even have separate modes, and it's for that very reason. So if your installation company puts your system in, they use the installer code to learn in all your zones, get the monitoring working, everything's good to go. Then the last thing they'll do is have you change your master code. You don't have to give them the master code, and now they have access to the programming, and you, the end user, don't, because you don't know what the installer code is, so you can't make any mistakes to what they've set up. But using the master